What if I told you there's one trait, one invisible force, that pulls women in harder than a perfect face? Harder than money, harder than status, and most men will die never understanding it, not because it's rare, not because it's complicated, but because it's the one truth that destroys everything society teaches you about attraction, because it's uncomfortable, because it doesn't sound nice, because it exposes what women respond to before words ever get involved. A few years ago, a group of behavioral researchers tried to measure something simple, not what women say they want, not what they claim sounds morally correct, but what their nervous system reacts to before their brain can edit the answer. They didn't sit women down and ask for opinions. They didn't collect polite answers. They watched patterns, real patterns, heart rate shifts, attention spikes, body language changes, the kind of reactions that happen before logic. Before social conditioning, before the mask, they measured the kind of truth you can't fake. And what they found was so inconvenient, so against the modern narrative, that it never became mainstream, because the results didn't flatter anyone. They didn't support the comforting fantasy that attraction is built through kindness alone. It exposed something raw. Women don't bond to the man who looks best. They don't attach to the man who tries hardest. They don't obsess over the man who begs for approval. They bond to the man who feels unshakable, the man whose inner world does not move, the man who doesn't chase validation, the man who is already complete. And once a woman feels that, something changes. Her curiosity turns into fixation. Her comfort turns into tension. Her indifference turns into pursuit, because biology doesn't care about politeness. Attraction is not a debate. It's a response. And Stoicism has been teaching this for centuries, not as manipulation, but as mastery. So today I'm going to break down what that trait really is, why it overrides looks, why it overrides wealth, why it overrides status, and why the man who embodies it never has to chase. Let's begin. Chapter 1, Why Words Mean Nothing. Most men build attraction the wrong way. They think attraction is something you can logically assemble, like a formula. They believe if they collect the right traits, the right behaviors, the right words, desire will automatically appear. So they listen to what women say. They hear, I want kindness. I want softness. I want emotional availability. And men take those words like law. They reshape themselves into something acceptable. They become agreeable. They become accommodating. They become endlessly understanding. They become the man who never creates friction, never causes discomfort, never risks tension, because they assume attraction is built through approval, through emotional service, through being chosen. But that is the first trap. Because female attraction is not a logical checklist. It's not a job interview. It's not a morality test. It's biological, subconscious, emotional. And biology doesn't respond to what sounds correct. It responds to what feels real. This is where most men get destroyed. Women will often describe the man they should want, the man that fits the socially approved narrative, the man who is safe, the man who is kind, the man who is emotionally open. And yes, those things matter, but only after attraction already exists, because kindness does not create polarity, softness does not create tension, availability does not create desire. Desire comes first, then comfort. Most men reverse the order. They try to build comfort first, hoping it will lead to desire. And instead they become invisible, not hated, not rejected harshly, just filed away, like a friend, like emotional furniture, like someone she appreciates but never craves. And men don't understand why. They think, I did everything right. I listened. I was supportive. I was there. And that's exactly the problem. They were there too much. They were emotionally negotiable. They were waiting for permission. Because attraction isn't created by agreement. It's created by presence. Presence is something words can't fake. A man who is trying too hard to be liked already communicates weakness, not weakness of muscles, weakness of identity. Because the moment you need her approval, you have placed her above you. And women sense that instantly, not because women are evil, not because women are cruel, but because biology detects instability. Neediness is instability. Approval-seeking is instability. Over-agreeableness is instability. A man who constantly adjusts himself to be accepted is not grounded. And grounding is what creates attraction. Think about it. Imagine two men in London. Same looks, same job, same status. One man speaks carefully, always checking her reaction. He laughs a little too quickly. He apologizes too often. He asks, "Is this okay? Do you want to decide?" "Whatever you like." The other man is calm. Not rude, not arrogant, just internally anchored. He doesn't rush. He doesn't perform. He doesn't seek permission to exist. He speaks when he has something to say. He doesn't bend his personality for approval. And even if both men are equally kind, only one feels solid. Only one feels unshakable. And women don't bond to the man who speaks the best. They bond to the man who feels stable. That's why words mean nothing, because attraction is not built through what women claim. It's built through what they respond to beneath language. Most men never understand this. They stay trapped in the world of politeness, and they never realize attraction is not logical. It's visceral. It's subconscious. It's emotional. And words are the weakest layer of all. Chapter 2. The trait that overrides everything. The trait is simple. Internal authority. Not aggression. Not arrogance. Not cruelty. But a calm sense of, I am already complete. Internal authority is the energy of a man who does not need permission. He does not chase validation. He does not audition. He does not negotiate his worth in real time. He moves like his life is already anchored. And women feel that instantly, because uncertainty repels and stability pulls. Most men believe attraction comes from external things. A better body, more money, higher status, more followers. But those are surface-level signals. Internal authority is deeper. It is the nervous system. It is emotional gravity. A man with internal authority walks into a room and does not scan faces to see if he belongs. He already belongs, not because he is entitled, but because he is centered. That is rare, and rarity becomes magnetic. Think about why women lose attraction so quickly when a man becomes emotionally unstable. At first, he is confident. He leads. He is calm. Then he starts over-texting, over-explaining, over-apologizing. He begins seeking reassurance. And suddenly something shifts. The polarity collapses because the man is no longer internally sovereign. Stoicism calls this emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain centered no matter what happens outside you. A woman pulls back. You don't panic. A woman tests you. You don't collapse. A woman challenges your frame. You don't become reactive. You remain grounded. That groundedness is what overrides looks, because looks fade, money fluctuates, status changes, but internal authority is timeless. Women are not attracted to perfection. They are attracted to stability. A man who feels internally complete communicates, I want you, but I do not need you. And that is the difference between desire and desperation. Desperation repels. Completeness attracts. That's why the trait overrides everything. Not because women consciously choose it, but because their biology responds to it. It feels like safety. Not the comfort of softness, but the safety of strength. The safety of a man who can lead himself, and a man who can lead himself becomes unforgettable. Chapter 3. The brutal contradiction. Here's where men get uncomfortable. Women will often say they want softness, but respond first to strength. Not strength of muscles, strength of nervous system. And this contradiction destroys weak men. They become bitter. They say women are dishonest. But the truth is simpler. Women are not lying. They are describing comfort. But attraction is not comfort. Attraction is polarity, tension, emotion. A woman may admire softness, but she craves stability first. She craves the man who does not collapse, the man who does not chase, the man who does not become needy when she pulls back. That is why the nice guy fails, because niceness without spine feels like hunger. It feels like, please choose me. And women do not bond to men who beg energetically. Need kills polarity. Need collapses desire. Women don't attach to men who need them. They attach to men who can walk away, not as a tactic, not as manipulation, but because walking away proves completeness. A man who can leave is a man who is not dependent, and dependency is the death of attraction. This is why eye contact matters, not because it's a trick, but because it reveals nervous system strength. A man who can hold eye contact without seeking validation communicates, I am grounded. A man who speaks without hedging communicates, I am certain. A man who stays calm when she becomes emotional communicates, I am stable. and stability is erotic. That's the brutal contradiction. Women may say they want the man who is endlessly soft, but their bodies respond first to the man who is unshakable, because softness without strength becomes emotional submission, and emotional submission kills polarity. That is why men who overplease get friend-zoned. They become comfort, not desire. Women respect them, trust them, even appreciate them, but they do not crave them, because craving requires tension, and tension requires strength, not cruelty, not arrogance, but internal spine. Women don't want chaos, they want grounded power, and the man who masters that becomes the man she cannot forget. Chapter 4. What dominance actually is. Dominance is misunderstood. Most men hear the word and immediately picture something loud. Aggression, control, ego, some kind of arrogant man trying to overpower everyone in the room. That is not dominance. That is insecurity wearing armor. Real dominance is quieter, colder, more internal. Dominance is not control over her. It is control over yourself, because the man who cannot control himself will always try to control others. And women can feel the difference instantly. True dominance is emotional stillness. It's decisiveness. Frame. The ability to stand in your own reality without constantly asking for permission to exist inside hers. A dominant man doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't perform masculinity like a costume. He simply moves like his inner world is unmovable. He says, "This is what I want," without apology, without begging, without over-explaining. That energy is rare, and rarity is magnetic. Most men live in emotional noise. They talk too much. They explain too much. They try to convince. They try to be understood. They try to prove. And every extra word is another leak of power. Dominance is gravity. Gravity doesn't chase. Gravity pulls. A man with dominance does not need to convince a woman that he is strong. She feels it, not because he's trying, but because he's stable. Think about the difference. A needy man asks, "Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Do you still like me?" A dominant man notices the shift and stays calm. He doesn't panic. He doesn't collapse. He doesn't scramble to repair tension, because tension does not scare him. That's dominance. It's emotional authority. Women don't crave dictators. They don't want cruelty. They don't want a man who is unstable and controlling. They want a man whose inner world does not move based on their moods, because that feels like safety, not soft safety, structural safety. Like standing next to a mountain, that's why dominance triggers attraction, not because women want to be controlled, but because they want to feel a man who is unshakable. Most men think dominance is something you do to her, but dominance is something you become inside yourself. The man who is internally governed cannot be emotionally manipulated. He cannot be pulled into chaos. He does not beg. He does not chase. He does not bargain for attention. And that is what creates polarity. That is what creates desire. Because desire requires contrast. A woman cannot crave what is emotionally available at all times. She craves what feels solid, what feels rare, what feels grounded. Dominance is not cruelty. It is stillness. It is restraint. It is internal authority. And that is the difference between noise and gravity. Chapter 5, How to Build It, Stoic Practice. This isn't a trick. It's a discipline. Most men want dominance as a tactic. They want a shortcut. A way to act confident so women respond differently, but women don't respond to performance. They respond to nervous system truth. You cannot fake internal authority. You either have it or you don't. And the only way to build it is through practice. Stoicism was never about aesthetics. It was never about quotes. It was about emotional mastery. So here is how it's built. First, stop asking for approval in every decision. Most men live like they need permission to lead. They ask, "Where do you want to go? What do you feel like doing? Is this okay?" That energy is weak, not because being considerate is bad, but because constant permission-seeking communicates uncertainty. Instead, decide. Invite her into your life. "We're going to this place at 7. Not as control, as clarity. Clarity is attractive. Second, speak in certainty. Remove maybe from your identity. Stop hedging every statement like you're afraid of disagreement. A man who cannot state his opinion is a man with no frame. Women don't bond to men with no frame. Third, hold your ground under pressure. A woman will test you, Not because she hates you, but because biology checks stability. If you collapse under minor tension, you are not safe emotionally. So stay steady. Disagreement is not danger. Fourth, stop over-explaining. Over-explaining is begging in disguise. A dominant man does not justify his existence. He states, he moves. He remains calm. Fifth, build real competence. Confidence is earned, not acted. Internal authority comes from evidence. A man who achieves becomes grounded. A man who drifts becomes needy. Discipline creates gravity. Achievement creates stability. And stability creates attraction. Sixth, detach from outcome. The man obsessed with winning loses power. The man who can walk away keeps power. Detachment is not coldness. It is sovereignty. Stoicism teaches you control yourself, not the outcome, not her response, not her approval. When a woman feels that you are emotionally free, she becomes emotionally curious, because freedom is rare, need is common. This is Stoicism in real life, not philosophy. Presence, stillness, discipline. Internal authority, that is the practice. And once it becomes real, you don't have to chase. You don't have to perform. Your energy speaks first. Conclusion, 600, 800 words. The one thing women respond to more than looks, more than money, more than status, is the man who is internally unshakable, because biology doesn't obey political narratives. Attraction is not created by pleasing. It is created by polarity. Most men lose because they think desire is built through comfort, so they become softer, more agreeable, more emotionally available, and they become invisible. Nice without strength becomes comfort. Strength without chaos becomes desire. The man who masters himself becomes magnetic, not because he is playing games, but because he is stable. Women don't bond to the man who looks best. They bond to the man who feels anchored, the man who doesn't chase approval, the man who doesn't collapse under pressure, the man who can lead himself. That is internal authority. That is dominance correctly understood, and Stoicism has taught it for centuries, not as manipulation, as self-governance. So the choice is simple. You can keep living like the average man, explaining, chasing, hoping, or you can become the man whose inner world is immovable, the man who doesn't need validation to feel strong, the man who doesn't beg energetically, the man who is complete. And once you become that, you won't have to chase, because your presence will do what words never could. If this opened your eyes, subscribe, because this channel is about reality, not fantasy. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.